Welcome back to Ben's Den. We are at the Division One preview show, the third out of three. So this is it. It's Thursday night, if you're keeping tabs, which means we have two more sleeps and a wake up, and we are good to go. I'm super excited. I got some great coaches here with me tonight that represent the D1 scene and very knowledgeable and very competitive in what's going to be a good D1 weekend this weekend, and then off to MOC we go. So let's not waste any time. Let me bring in my special guests here. Starting with, we have a veteran. He's been here before. He's the head coach of Bedford, and that's Coach Ryan Schieding. How are you, sir?
Awesome, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And new to not only, or I'd say a return head coach, if I understand the history correctly, and new to Ben's Den, we got the Keene head coach, Mr. Gillard. I got it right this time. No good luck. We got Mr. Bill Gillard, which I've been screwing up all year. Thank you for being here, Coach.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate it.
So, like I mentioned in the quick intro, we got a lot of good things to go through. Let's start right with the little guys at 106. And when I say little, I only mean in stature, not in heart, because if you look at the top couple there, we got a battle jumping right off at 106. So I've been kind of touting them boys from Exeter this year. They've been having a really good year as a team, and leading the charge is the Grand Mason boys, and the first one up is Reed. He's had a heck of a year. He's got the 1 seed there. You got Matt Boucher from Timberlane, also another stud out of there in the Owl's Nest, number 2. John Bloxage out of Salem's going to be 3. Got your hometown boy, Mr. Woodbury, Tristan at number 4. Biswar Darji from Concord will be 5. And then we got Jackson Ella out of Bedford as your 6 seed. And so I've watched Reed jump around a bit this year and do some damage. And so he's been fun to watch. I'm not shocked to see him in the 1 seed. I guess Coach Gillard, I'll go to you, or Gillard, excuse me. It'll take me some time to get there. Coach Gillard. You got Tristan Woodbury there, another tough Blackbird coming. Got the 4 seed, so it makes his way. It's going to be through Grand Mason. So tell me how the season's gone and what this weekend's looking like.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tristan is a big competitor. He's got a huge motor. He just likes to wrestle hard all the way through, and he's been progressing technically throughout the season. Getting better and better and better, improving on results, even in his losses, guys he lost to earlier in the season, making up ground. And that's really what we want all the guys to do, throughout the state. We want all of New Hampshire to get better. But I mean, Reed's definitely a tough kid. He took it to us at the home meet. I think he won by Tech Fall. He puts a lot of points on the board, loves to score. And so, we'll be looking when we get to the semifinals to go after it and kind of narrow that gap, see what we can do.
I think that's a safe assessment of how that's going to go. And so, Coach Schieding, obviously you're familiar a lot with the Timberlane and the Salem kids as well. So you got a tough Boucher and a tough Bloxage, there on the bottom side of the bracket for some fireworks. How do you see that going? And then you got a young kid in Ella, right? He's, if I'm not mistaken, freshman, right?
Sophomore. Yeah.
So
still at, up about 16 pounds from last year, but still 106. So the extra weights help. But I mean, as far as this bracket goes, it's everyone's right where they should be. The only exception is really, Grand Mason, Boucher. Grand Mason hasn't seen Boucher or Bloxage yet. So, it'll be interesting. Boucher and Bloxage, it looks like had a close match earlier this year. So, be interesting to kind of see who comes out of that or if an upset happens.
So is that a paper issue? Is that like who had more paper? How's that work? Because you got head-to-heads. A lot of people out in the land, and even a lot of the coaches that are not sure how stuff is seeded sometimes. So something like that. How's that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think Grand Mason has picked up a loss yet this year, so I think that's what gives them the 1 seed. But then again, he hasn't seen Boucher or Bloxage yet. They didn't run into each other in either duel. Exeter didn't end up dueling those 2 teams this year. The highest person he's seen on here, it looks like, was Woodbury. who's again really tough. And it looks like he got it done there. It'll be interesting to see, if he holds up to the seed and really who comes out of that bottom side, because Boucher and Bloxage have really close matches.
Yeah.
They're pretty evenly matched. You never know who's going to come out of there. Both are super dangerous. They'll be interested to see what happens in that semis and the finals.
Yeah, and just again, I know I ref and all that, but I'm a super fan. And the first thing I saw in the first bracket that I looked at is 2 and 3, Timberlane and Salem, right away out of the gate.
Yeah.
You got team battles. It's because all these tournaments, you see these Penn State, right? You get 8 champions. All right, that's an anomaly. Tournaments are one underneath. Right? You're gonna have a couple of champions. These guys got 2, whatever. But man, these kids underneath, and so that's a great opening bracket to review there. I wouldn't sleep on Darji out of Concord. He's that 5 seed, but he can catch a person and put you right where you need to be and upset the apple cart. And Concord has been doing that all year underneath, driving hard in the bracket. So
yeah,
it would be fun.
I guess with like those top 3, it's just just a little unanswered questions with not all of them seeing each other. So it'll be really interesting to see who ends up running into who and what happens when they finally meet up.
Yeah, it's going to be a good bracket to watch. So we'll check that one off as a lovely one to keep in the Flow Arena, ready to rock. All right, so let's move to 113. There's going to be some of these brackets where there's just these hammers that it's going to be very difficult to make a case for somebody to beat them, knowing that, listen, you got to tie your shoes up, you got to strap your headgear on, and you still got to wrestle. But if you're, a Vegas guy and you're doing some odds, there's just certain kids you're like, there's levels to the game. So one of those kids is the number 1 seed here, Ben Mann from Timberlane. He's had an outstanding season and just each year to continue to get better. 2 seed. Not much change there, right? Maddox Boudreaux, been around just as long, crushing it just as long. So those 2 on the opposite sides of the bracket excite the heck out of me. You got Ciano out of Wyndham. Let's face it, Wyndham has had a difficult year as a team this year, and Ciano's been one of the lone highlights throughout the season, and so it's good to see him there at the 3 seed. Zachary Parent out of Keene, 4 seed. You got Upham Samuel out of Bedford. And then looks like I got Spalding on the board here, number 6, Eisen Scruton. And I mention him because Spalding is a first-year D1 program this year. So they've been swimming in what they would call the deep waters of Division One. So it's good to see them cracking the seeding chart. So again, it's going to be a common theme here. We're going to see some programs, Timberlane, Salem, Keene, Bedford. They bubble up to the top, and right out of the gate again, Mann and Boudreaux going at it. And a 4 seed for you, Coach Gillard. You got Zachary Parent down there at the top. Looking, again, got a tough road ahead, but I'm sure if you got one ready for him, he'll chase it if I remember who Zachary is.
Yeah. Ben's a senior, has really risen this year to do really well in the varsity position. Zach is a senior. And, but I will say, I think this bracket is exciting, 3 through 6, really. We split. Zach lost when we wrestled Wyndham, and then went and beat Ciano down at Lowell Holiday. And then we had a really tough match against Bedford. Upham is a tough kid. And so it's going to be exciting. I mean, obviously the championship bracket, you want to try to go, get an upset out there, on the top side. But when we get to the bottom side, it's going to be a dogfight to, get to the Conci finals and see what kind of medals you can pull out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they call it the blood round, right?
Right.
It gets messy under there. Coach Schieding, anything to add for 13?
No, not too much. It looks like the 2 clear, like the favorites is Mann and Maddox to meet up. They met up in the past too. I think last year was a Mann and Maddox finals in Division One as well. But 3 seeds all the way down. Anyone can come out. I know Sam and Parent had a one takedown match. Parent and Ciano split. I saw that Parent had pinned him at Lowell Holiday. So anything can happen down there. It would take a pretty good upset or something of a surprise for one of those top two guys to go down though.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, that's the
It
stuff legends
happens.
are made of, right? There's a guy who beat Dan Gable who nobody would know his
Yeah.
name unless he beat Dan Gable, right? So, all right, so let's move. We're gonna go to 120, and again, there's levels to the game. Number one seed here is Evan Lynch out of Salem. I mean, that kid's just been on fire. His senior year, it's just woof. Two seeds, Ethan Billabram out of Timberlane. Three is Cam Russell out of Londonderry. Four, another Exeter dim boy down there with Hudson Berry at the four. Owen Gagnon, another tough kid out of the Nashua North program. Isaiah Breen out of Concord at six, and then you got Jacob Jones out of Keene at seven. And the return of the Mac, Grace Kenna. It's good to see her. She got back in the lineup at the end of the regular season. She's your 8 seed from Bedford. So I guess again we'll head over to Coach Gillard. So you got Jacob Jones at seven, but is there anybody who disagrees? It's really Evan Lynch is to lose here, right?
Oh yeah, I mean he's he's a New England caliber wrestler. He placed at Lowell, and they Salem bumped up against us. So Lynch and Trubiano, who we'll see in the next bracket, had a really tight match. I think it was a 1-point match. And so he's kind of head and shoulders above the rest for sure. Looking really good. And then, but down below, I mean, like, I know that Nashua North kid, the Londonderry kid lost to, I think the Plymouth kid. Is it Phipps?
Yeah, Robert Phipps.
And then the North kid's got a win over him. So, like, there's a lot that could happen down in the lower seeds in terms of upsets and stuff like that. There's some really strong wrestlers. Jake is a sophomore for us, and he wrestles really tough. And I think he had some losses that he'd like to get back from earlier in the season. So he's definitely hungry to kind of make up for some of those losses. And Grace Kenna, man, she is a hammer on top. I'll say that. So you be careful for anybody who's choosing bottom underneath her.
Yeah, she is. She likes to ride them boots and put it on her. And there's that Keene crazy in her. If you know Charlie, you get it. And she channels it well on the mat. So, Coach Schieding, tell me what you're seeing here.
It's going to be tough for someone to take down Lynch. I'm pretty sure he has a tech fall win over the 2 seed. And I mean, going into his senior year, I'm sure he's probably looking past this and probably looking more towards New England's and hoping to place out there and do something out there. But as far as the rest of the bracket, Hudson Berry's really tough. I haven't seen too much from Londonderry yet. Haven't seen a lot of the Timberlane, but what I have seen from the other guys, Hudson Berry, Owen Gagnon, those are two guys we've ran into a few times and seen around. Both them super tough kids, so
I gotta tell you,
I wouldn't be surprised if they place a little higher than their seeds or.
Well, that's what I was going to say with Gagnon at 5. I mean, I've been watching him this year. He's just had a really good year. Strength of schedule probably bites him a little bit. I don't know that they travel out of state as much, and he might not get as many tough matches as he needs. But I would not sleep on the 5 seed Owen Gagnon from Nashua North.
Not at all. No, very, very tough kid. He tough last year too.
Yeah,
I saw him finals of the Cap City tournament.
Londonderry hasn't. Roussel at 3. They haven't had a ton of highlights this year either. It's been a tough season, right? They've had some injuries and stuff like that, and he's been a good highlight on them. So I mean, this one, I don't know that we're going to see much on the sign of the championship top spot, but man, it's going to get messy underneath there. It's going to be beautiful to watch. I hate that I have to ref. And I can't. I'll tell you what. I'll probably retire from reffing when we finally get all of the division tournaments in one arena on the same day. I don't know that I could work there. I can't. That's why I'm getting those young refs in here so I can sit back and relax at the end of the season. All right, let's jump to 126. So this one's a good one. I like this one. So number one, Spencer Buscema, Salem. You got two, the mayor, one of the mayors of Cradle City, Talon Oljay from Timberlane. He's your 2 seed. Carter Trubiano, coach. This one's a good one. Senior year here, doing a killer job. He's your 3 seed. Owen Gregg from Concord is your 4 seed. And then another maniac out of Spalding, Noah Jackson. When I say maniac, only on the mat, because if you talk to him off it, the sweetest, nicest kid. And then you got Hayden DeRocher out of North and Jacob Hoyt from Wyndham. And so, this one's going to be fun. So Buscema, look, he's on top. That kid will make every match the closest match and give you a heart attack if you're his coach. It's the craziest thing. But he just finds a way to get the job done. So he's going to be there. Talon OJ will hit a cradle from the stands. Watch out. Don't put your head down even 2 inches. He's got these amazingly long arms, and he can sit on his butt and defend. I mean, just things that you can't coach, he can do. And then at the 3 seed, some of the best ink in the game, if I'm not saying. I love his work on his arm, but that's Carter Trubiano. And he really, this year, has leveled up and looks like a man on a mission. And then you got Greg out of Concord, right? Another tough Tide kid. He's going to do battle underneath and score as many points as he can for his team. So I've been waiting for this one, and Coach Gillard, I'm so glad that it's you that's here, because this kid, Carter Trubiano, I've just been super impressed with his progressions over the last couple of years. And when you get to that senior year, it's all the marbles, and he's put all the work in, and he's ready to get after it. And so, what's his mindset like? His history with Buscema and Oljay. What are we expecting here this weekend at the D1s?
Yeah, I mean, Carter's. I wrestled with Carter's father in the 90s for Keene, and they're cut from the same cloth. Like, they're just laid back guys. They love to have fun, and Carter just loves to wrestle and scrap and go toe to toe with people, and so he's been doing that all year. I mean, we started off, turn him out in New York and Lowell Holiday, Cap City, like all the way up and down. And I think he's really excited. He's really excited to get on the mats and see what can happen. And this bracket, I mean, the top 3 seeds, Buscema, Oljay, and Trubiano, are really they're New England caliber wrestlers for sure. I mean, Truby placed at New England as a sophomore, and he's gone back and forth with Buscema over the years. And so, it's going to be really exciting to watch. And, and Carter's been working really hard, and I think he's dialed in and ready to go.
I agree. When he placed in New England, there was 2 kids I remember. But was he one that he had lost real early and had to march back like 6 matches or some stuff?
Yeah. He came back, and that's the thing. He's a gamer, like he's a kind of kid who you can never count out, to be able to place high in the state and go and be competitive down in New England. So
yeah, he's going to wrestle every match 100%. And it doesn't matter whether it's in the championship round or the Conci round, preseason, postseason, he's getting after it. So he's fun to watch. Coach Schieding, how about for you? I know you're a fan of this bracket already.
Yeah, I like the top 3 seeds here. It'll be real interesting to see who comes out of Oljay and Trubiano. That can be a real tight match, and both of them are cradle guys, and both of them are really good at finishing the cradles. Both of them can finish a match at any time, whether they're up or down. It'll be interesting to see who comes out of there and probably runs into Buscema. And then, if Buscema is going to be able to take him out in the finals. A lot of questions there. Be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, I know Buscema, last 2 years, Buscema came up short in D1s, but then ends up storming back at MOCs and takes everyone out at MOCs and gets it done on the biggest stage. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens this year, his senior year. I'm sure he's ready to knock down this tournament, and then I'm sure he probably wants to knock down MOCs as well. So be interesting to see who's going to come out of that 2 and 3 spot though, and probably run into him.
Yeah, I agree. And if you looked at his preseason goals, I'm sure it is D1 first and MOC second.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, Trubiano and Olajay, it's such a toss up. Both of them are so good.
yeah.
Those top 3 guys are so good.
Yeah, you
it's
wrestle
gonna
those
be
top 3 guys 10 times a piece, and
Yeah.
it's probably 5 and 5 across the board. Those guys, it's nuts. All right, we'll move along. 132 pounds. When we talk levels to the game, here's what we're talking about, right? So number 1, from Pinkerton Academy, Chatty Cathy himself, Lance Bordelot. Kid never shuts up. He's always talking to everybody. And I'll tell you, if anybody's surprised that Lance is the number 1 seed, they don't pay attention. Number 2 seed, Caleb O'Rourke out of Salem. Again, another O'Rourke, right? That name's been around for a while. Carries some good weight, and he is a stud down at the bottom side of that bracket. And this one, to me, this is like 126, just with different kids. But maybe the difference in the 1 and 2 is a little different. But man, Peyton Gowell's your 3 seed out of Keene. You got Gavin Page out of North at the 4 seed. Henry Palmer, Wyndham's your 5 seed, and then Morrissey from Timberlane is your 6. And then just outside the top 6, you got Damian Cassim out of Bedford. And so here's my thoughts, right? If I was a Vegas guy and I was betting, I'd have to go Bordelot, just based on pedigree and all that. It's just you talk about falling short a few times. He's had that. I mean, he didn't even go to New England's last year, right? He missed out on New England's, and you're not talking about any kind of a scrub kid. Well, that pissed him off because all I saw all off season was he's in Pennsylvania, he's in New Jersey. I'm gonna fly to Idaho if I need to. Wherever he could get work in, he got it in, and it's paid off. He looks really good. Nobody's unbeatable, but if you're talking about close to as unbeatable as you could be, he's it. There's a couple of those kids, and he's one of them. Now O'Rourke on the other side, strong kid. And then I'm Coach Gillard. I'm on Peyton Gowell, right? Another one cut from the cloth of I'm not giving up until I'm dead kind of thing. And so some good stuff happening in this bracket. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say that, it is very similar to 26. Like the top 3 seeds are New England caliber wrestlers. Gal was 4th down at Lowell this year. And he's been on a tear. And it's, part of the reason is it's you go to war every day against Trubiano in the room, and you got to get good, sink or swim. But Gal loves to wrestle, and so he didn't see O'Rourke. Salem bumped up, so they don't have any head-to-heads this year. So it'll be interesting to see. But Gal again is pretty much the same thing. He's had a great season. He's dialed in. He's ready to go, and just really excited to compete and toe the line. We've seen Lance a couple times, and he's very sharp. He's a really quality wrestler. He's got all his attacks and everything that he does really dialed in. So he knows, he gets out to the mat and just gets down to business. I think I was looking, he only has maybe 1 loss, maybe 1 or 2 losses this year, and not from any in-state kids. So, I mean, it's going to be a tough match to beat him, no matter where you see him.
Yeah, he's one of those kids. If you're going to beat him, you're going to have to wrestle perfect and catch him. Because you can wrestle perfect, but he's just going to be more perfect. Hey, great shot until he scoops behind you. And so it's cool, man. That's going to be such a cool bracket to watch, especially that bottom side of the bracket. Coach Schieding, I know that you got one down lower in Damien, but you looking as a fan as much as I am, because I know you're a coach, but you're a super fan as well. Looking at the bottom side of that bracket, what are you thinking?
I work with Lance a lot during the off season, and super tough kid. Last year just really ignited a fire in him, and he went everywhere, looked for the best competition, found the best competition, and beat a lot of the best competition over the off season. Really stepped up a lot and just wrestles super physical, super aggressive. doesn't play around and tries and takes you out as quick as possible. At the 2 seed, you have returning state champ O'Rourke, who actually was the person who had beaten Lance last year, and ended up winning the all-state title last year. So really tough 2 seed. And Gowell has been wrestling great this year, placing really high at Lowell. I think the biggest match of this bracket is going to be the 2 and 3 seed if they end up running into each other. That O'Rourke Gowell match is going to be a really big match for this bracket.
Yeah, I agree. It's so crazy because this is just the division round. Wait till we get to the MOC. This place is going to be nuts. I'm going to lose my mind next week. But let's stay where we're at for today. So 138. Let's hop over there. What do we got here? So we got number 1 from Timberlane, Joseph Consalvo for 138. Talon Waltham, Salem's your 2 seed. Ian Spencer from Keene is 3. Another tough blackbird there. Ryan Grand Mason, the 4 seed for Exeter. And then McGrail out of Wyndham and Smith out of Nashua North. So this one is a little bit of a wild card for me here. So I know Consalvo has been doing very well this year. I know Walton had a good year. He did suffer, I believe, an ankle injury late December, something along that. So I know he was out for a little bit. Watching Spencer this year, just, man, toughness personified, just grinding it out. And so I'd be curious because I think that you guys would probably know a little bit more about Consalvo and Walton. So, Coach Gillard, I'll pass it to you. So you got the 3 seed, tough kid in Walton. If you head that direction, what are your thoughts on the 138 pounds bracket?
Yeah, well, Spencer's a lot like his older brother, who was second to O'Rourke last year at MOCs, and he's tough. He loves to wrestle. He's a student of the game. So it's an interesting seeding lineup because he beat Consalvo in the Timberlane duel. So, and then lost to Walton at the Salem duel 8-4. So it's, I think really, when I look at this bracket, just objectively speaking, I think it's anybody's to win, in terms of it's really close up top. The Wyndham kid is tough, and so it'll be really exciting. But Ian is pumped up. He's been training hard all year with all those guys in the room, and he's ready to go get it. So,
now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is Spencer a sophomore this year?
Yeah, he's a sophomore. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I try to. Some of these kids, they get in these tournaments and they lose and they get all depressed. I'm like, you don't even understand that you're not even supposed to be on varsity as a sophomore.
Right.
In most places, and there are kids that are going to leave certain programs as a career JV because the varsity's it's that stacked. And so these kids, they think, oh, well, I'm on varsity. And like, no, you're just learning on the job. And part of that is beatings. So just relax and stop taking as many of them. And Spencer is a really good example of that. His freshman year was tough. He wasn't at 106. He's up with some kids that had some weight on him. And it's good to see him having some success. And, a 3 seed going into D1. Boy, that's some pretty good stuff as a sophomore.
Yep.
Mr. Schieding, what are you seeing here?
I see anyone out of these top 5 guys could come through. McGrail from Wyndham is really tough, big kid, long, strong, really good wrestler. Grand Mason, I think he's a freshman, if I'm right. Ryan Grand Mason.
I think so. I'll check it out real quick while you keep going.
I think both the Grand Mason boys are freshmen, but another just really big 38. Spencer's been wrestling great this year. Talon Walton's always super tough. He can always have a good day. I mean, you can go back to last year. I'm pretty sure he made the finals of the Lowell Holidays. So the kid can wrestle. He just
good athlete.
If he turns it on, yeah, he's a strong physical kid, and if he turns it on and has himself a day, like he can do some really good things. In Consalvo, I haven't seen him much this year. I think the only time I may have seen him was at the Timberlane tournament, but I just I didn't really get a good look at anything, so I don't have much to go on from him. But hearing that Spencer had beaten him early in the year, that bracket seems like in those top five, it's open to anyone.
And
It
again,
definitely they are both Consalvo and Walton. They're big boys for 138. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be a brawl out there for sure.
yeah, for sure. All right, so we're hitting the halfway mark, 144 pounds. Looking here, another tough kid out of Spalding. This time is the 1 seed, and that's Jaden Deal. This kid, he's tough. Your 2 seed, Nick Darby out of Exeter. 3 is Dominic Lee from Timberlane. 4 is your other mayor of Cradle City, Jackson Carter out of Concord. Your number 5 is Noah Cataldo, Pickerton Academy, Riley O'Brien, Salem, and then Leo Runes at 7, Keene, and then Jackson Bergeron is your 8 for Bedford. And so in this one, I'm not, again, I didn't get to see a ton of Exeter this year. I think I was at one tournament where they might have been at. But I know Jaden Deal, and I've been watching him. He's dialed in this year, ready to rock. Puberty's been good to him. He's swole up this year. He grew a bunch, and he looks really solid. And so a deserving 1 seed. Dom Lee from Timberlane's a tough kid, and Jackson Carter, right? It's like the long lost cousin of Talon Old J, just a little bit bigger. Just long and hits these crazy moves. You better keep your head up. So, I think in this one, I want to go to you, Coach Gillard, again. This Leo Runes 7 seed, this to me is probably one of the more, I don't want to say it's wrong, but if you sleep on this 7 seed, you're going to be in trouble because Runes is tough and he will make a dogfight out of all your matches and try to drag you into deep waters and beat you. And so him at a 7, I'm sure he's ready. I know there's possibilities that we could lose another Runes out of the area, to a private school. We always, Bordalo's the same thing. We could lose him as well. These good kids, I always worry they're going to leave us, but, life is important. But, looking at what we're seeing here at 144 pounds, we got him this year. Striving for an upset, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Leo was out like a little bit during the middle of the year, but he's stormed back. He's back in the same form that he had the beginning of the year, and it's I would say well, I mean, Jaden Deal from Spalding is definitely tough. He won the Cap City. Bishop Hendricken had a really good 144 there. The 144 bracket at Cap City was real tough. And he was OW of that tournament, so he definitely put his mark on that. It was a super close match between Jackson Carter and Leo when they wrestled Keene versus Concord, and Leo just beat Darby 2 weeks ago when we had Exeter at home. So the whole bracket is kind of, I think it's anybody's game. And the thing I'll say about Leo is, he's a student of the game. He's got a lot of offensive weapons, and he just gets out there and gets after it. And he's going to wrestle you bell to bell and push you, really, really, really hard. So you better be ready to wrestle when you toe the line against him.
No arguments here, Coach Schieding. See anything you like here?
I think this is the biggest toss-up bracket with the 1 through 8 here. I would think that Deal's probably the favorite, but every one of these guys has wins over the other people. I know Jackson Carter at pin Deal. Jackson Carter's always dangerous. He can catch you in a cradle and pin you. When he locks it on, it's not just locking it on, he's really good at finishing. So he has a pin over Deal. Darby got majored by Runes about 2-3 weeks ago. He's had 1 takedown matches with Bergeron. So that 2 and 7 in the quarters is a really interesting matchup if you look at just recent matchup between those two. And then you have Dom Lee at 3 seed, potentially running into Riley O'Brien of Salem. in the quarters, and O'Brien has a win over Domley earlier in the season too. Carter, Cataldo, you never know who's going to come out of there, and every one of these guys has wins over other people who might be seated higher, but then losses over some kids who are seated lower than them. So, I mean, it's kind of anyone's bracket. It's probably the biggest question mark of who's going to come out of there. I think Runes is a big sleeper in that bracket.
I agree. Super dark horse right there.
Mhm.
I got to tell you, the more times that I hear, this bracket could go any way, the happier I am. Listen, you got a kid who's dominant. It's fun to watch, but okay. But when the opening round could upend the entire bracket, oh, I love that. That's the
Yeah,
great.
I mean, if you look at it, you got, potentially just the quarters with Runes and Darby and Lee and O'Brien. That could be a 2 and a 3 seed potentially going down early if history repeats itself. So it's a really questionable bracket. If Carter came through and ran in the deal, Carter has a win over deal by pinfall. It hit him with the cradle. So like you never know what's going to happen in that bracket. I think that's the biggest what if bracket. It's whoever shows up, who's ever on point, and really whoever doesn't make a mistake that day.
That's it. That's what
Yeah,
it's about.
Cataldo from Pinkerton is also tough. He's a tough wrestler, so I would certainly, I think he's appropriately seated at 5, but put him in the mix.
The big strong kid this year. He really matured too physically. I mean, he is jacked, and you're 100% right. He's another one of those dark horses, right? Appropriately seated, but wouldn't shock me if he pulled it off. He would have to wrestle tough and wrestle good, but it wouldn't be a crazy deal to see him climb up there. All right, we're on the downside, gents. We're on to 150, and this young man, the number 1 seed, Benjamin Byrne from Nashua South. We had Colton Seuss, number 2 from Timberlane. Caleb Holden, number 3 from Londonderry. You got Dylan Gravelise as your 4 from Spalding. A rough and tumble Sawyer McCready is your number 5 out of Concord. And then Rocco Ponzini, 7. You got Jacob Ham as 8. That's out of Keene. And then no 150 for Bedford. Where they?
No, he's in there.
He's
He's
Yep. Had to scroll down.
Yep.
All right. So this Benny Byrne, he's another one of those kids, right? He got disappointed last year in how he finished, and he just got to work this year. Matured physically, mentally, and he's had a heck of a season this year. He's smashing the kids he's supposed to smash, and he's taking some losses where he's supposed to take some losses. Out of state, doesn't win everything, right? He's still very hungry. And then you got Colton Seuss at 2 from Timberlane. Again, wins a lot of matches, and so I think is appropriately seated down top 4 from what I know. Holden's tough out of the Lancer program there in Londonderry, and then Gravelise. I mean, something about them Rochester boys. They're ready to scrap, and they will rip your whatever off if they're allowed to. So, Coach Schieding, let's start with you because I know you're familiar with one Benjamin Byrne, or as I like to call him, Benny Byrne.
Benny Byrne, really tough. It seems like he's been handling everyone this year. Cole Seuss, another solid kid who's been around for a while. And then, the rest of this bracket is really solid. Carter Mayotte, really tough kid, big, strong, physical kid. Run into the Londonderry kid potentially. Gravelise and McCready. McCready doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And then, even Ham and Ponzini are 2 really solid wrestlers. Aiden Shaw's had a solid year. Those top 9 guys are really tough. And even, my guy at Bedford has a win in that top 6 area as well. But also, has a couple more losses against the other guys as well. So I think really tough out of those top nine area right there. It'll be interesting to see who actually makes it through to MOCs. I could see some of these guys who are seated in that top six potentially not making it out to the MOCs next week, taking the top six with some of these guys down low like Ham and Ponzini and potentially Shaw.
Yep. Well, Coach Gillard, I'll send it to you with this little nugget that I just I found it on track. But when Caleb Holden of Londonderry pinned Benjamin Byrne back late January, and so if there's anybody in that bracket that has doubt that the lion can fall down, well, there's your proof. And so rightfully seated, but could be some fireworks in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the exciting thing, when it comes to postseason time, is you never know what's going to happen, and when we coach our guys, like, you're always trying to you got to wrestle smart, you got to stay in right positions, and you got to watch out for those things because anything can happen. It can be anybody's game, if, as Ryan said, if they have a day. One thing that's cool, seeing Spalding come into D1. They've had some really quality wrestlers over the years. So it's just in terms of, parity across the state. And it's, as a fan of wrestling, it's good to see Spalding come back and have some guys seated. And the middleweights for them, like all the way up through, I think they've got another guy, not to get ahead of ourselves, but up 65, 75. Seated, and anyways, it's just really cool to see them putting some guys out there, being really competitive. But I would agree with Ryan. This is a really tough bracket. Solid guys down through the 8 seed, and so it'll be exciting to see who qualifies for next week.
Yes, and I would like to shout out Sawyer McCready. He's your 5 seed. Do I envision him at the top of the podium? No. Would it be a miracle upset if he got there? I think so. But he's a senior this year, and what I've just watched from the kid, I love a dogfight. I love when a kid, you don't have to be the best. So the thing that's pissed me off the most about, going through the box scores is all these kids that get pinned so quick and so easy. It makes me nuts because you don't have to be a wrestler to know how to get off your back. You just got to fight and want to poke somebody's eye out. I'd rather you get DQ'd. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but, just to emphasize the toughness of, like, you don't have to know wrestling to get off your back. And when that kid Sawyer wrestles, he knows wrestling, but he's no Yanni D or anything like that. He's going to come in, he's going to club you on your head, and he's going to make you work. And you're going to have to get after him. He might back up a little bit. He'll challenge the stall calls for sure. But it's good to see him. He's a senior, and he stayed committed through his 4 years, and he helped out a lot and got his off-season work at BGS. So, good luck to him. It's just good to see those kids. All right, so let's hop through. We get to 57. All right, Coach Schieding, we're coming your way now because this has been one of the really bright stories. We got number 1 seed Tucker Watson out of Bedford, another recent 100 victory picker-upper. And then on the other side of that bracket is a number 2. I feel like this is the Red Sox versus the Yankees. It's Manny Perez from Londonderry. He was out a little bit before the season, had a hand injury, and he came back. Got Jack, now that I know how to properly pronounce it, Gillard out of Keene. He's your 3 seed. Another tough kid out of Concord, and Max Chung at number 4. Connor Combs Pinkerton is your 5 seed. You got Vargas, a.k.a. John, out of Salem is your number 6. You got Gabe Bueno, Exeter is 7. Reed Robinson, Timberlane 8. And then looks like you got a couple down underneath. But we're going to focus here up on the top because I think the top 4 really excite me here. Possibly 5, even 6. This is another bracket where there's some really good matchups. I think Tucker Watson, if you could put his journey up on a screen and fast forward, do it in like fast time for these kids that, are struggling on a lower level. Like, he showed up, he's kind of overweight, kind of soft, kind of uncommitted. And then he just got around a bunch of iron and said, yeah, I want to be like that, and put the work in, puberty is a blessing as well. And it really, he's taken all of that and he's put it into a hell of a season. So, Coach Schieding, here's your chance to stump for the kid that's the #1 seed, probably one of the nicest kids out there as well. One final run with him. What are you thinking?
Yeah, he's had a great year. He's come a long way, from his freshman year all the way till now. Probably came in about a 215 freshman year, down to 157 now, having a great year. Beat some really good kids along the way. Of his 4 losses this year, one's to Marath at Low Holidays in the semifinals, and then he lost another close, like triple overtime, to Thompson from Weymouth, but that was up at 165, and I think he may only have one loss at 157 this year, and that came in the Cap City Classic Finals. But he's put together a great year. Just really smart, really patient, doesn't make mistakes, stays in good position, and forces you into bad positions and capitalizes on your mistakes.
And I got to say, quite a leader too. He's an upperclassman, and I've watched him with the kids that are the underclassmen, and you got quite the contingent of young ladies on your squad as well, and that's new to the sport, and managing that dynamic. He's just been a real role model for some of those younger kids. So
yeah, he does all the right things. He doesn't never going to be a headache. Checks all the boxes, does all the right things, does everything right too. Never have to question about what he's doing, never, have to question his work ethic or anything. He just does all the right things. Don't have to worry about grades or anything. He's just always on top of his stuff.
Yeah. Coach Gillard, you want me to just go to the next bracket, or do you want to talk about this one at all?
Yeah, no, we can talk about it a little bit. Yeah, I mean, Perez, we haven't seen Londonderry or Perez at all this year. And I don't even think we saw them last year. I mean, personally, I would like to, switch things up a little bit and maybe have a required quad so that like all the D1 teams, build in a Saturday, because you can't fit all the Wednesdays in. So at least everybody has to see everybody. I just think, that would make for a little bit, better postseason tournament. But yeah, so Jack hasn't wrestled Perez, but wrestled against Chung. That was a close 1-point match at Cap City. If you look at Perez's stats on track, he's I think very similar to Tucker in terms of I think he's got a couple losses, but really to some high quality opponents. He's at the 2 seed. He's definitely going to be a tough guy to beat. And Combs and Vargas are strong as well. So, it's going to be a tough battle to stay in the top side of that, championship bracket and try to make it to the finals.
Yeah, I agree. The X factor for me, again, Perez was out a bit, before the season with an injury. And so, that it has different impacts, right? There's different ways. Like, hey, it affects the gas tank. Well, then a little less wear and tear, so there's pros and cons to both sides. But again, just watching this bracket shape up, Vargas down there at 6, right? He's sneaky. So it's going to be some good stuff. Again, a lot of bloodshed underneath trying to get those team points. I think that's what you're going to see at this 57 bracket. So put your Kevlar on, boys. All right. 65 we'll go to. Another tough South kid. So Connor Whitman, what do you think the odds of him and Byrne being training partners are? Probably pretty good, right? So 2 1 seeds there. This is Whitman at 165. You got Jason O'Brien out of Timberlane, the 2 seed. LMAC, the last of the McKiernans. Landon McKiernan, Pinkerton Academy is your 3. Avery Niemi out of Exeter, 4 seed. The Red Rider, Riley Holt out of Concord is your 5 seed. And then the Jar Kid, Calvin Bradley. He's been hanging out with us at the Association of Officials, and he's your 6th seed and a senior there at Bedford. And then I want to shout out Jackson Moeller, Dover, the lone Dover wrestler. He rolls to the tournaments, represents the Big Green Nice out there. So it was good to see his name in the bracket at the 7 seed. Tyler English down there at the bottom there, right before the numbers run out, Coach, at number 9. So, Coach Schieding, let me ask you this. So Calvin, he's one of those kids. He actually, had a little break from wrestling and then came back and he's getting after it. And, he's in his senior year. He's probably lower than he'd like to be, but, we got some tough kids in this one.
Yeah, he's having a good year. He's had some good wins, slip up here or there, but been wrestling great this year. Really came through for us a lot in a couple big matches. Picked up some really big pins. Has been wrestling his best later on in the season. He had a good win over Holt from Concord a couple weeks ago, so that was a good win for him. He was in a really tight match with Niemi. He's right where he should be in the bracket. It'll be hopefully an interesting quarters match with him and Landon McKiernan, and then that bottom side of the bracket is a who's who. I know Landon had a tight match with O'Brien. Calvin was in I think a 5-2 match with O'Brien as well. I think Landon was in a 14-11 match with O'Brien. So that bottom side of the bracket is pretty interesting right now.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm noticing from some of the results here, again, Connor Whitman, really tough, right? But I do notice the Red Rider, Riley Holt, the 5 seed, he did have a pin. Looks like he caught him on February 5th at a dual meet. And so, as I like to say, it can be done. You just never know. Coach Gillard, anything in here that makes you feel happy about we're in the wrestling season?
Yeah, well, I would agree with that assessment of Holt. He's a funky wrestler, and you never kind of know what you're going to get with him. So he's going to be throwing some stuff, and you just got to be careful because you're going to, you can get caught. McKiernan's tough, Niemi's tough, and the Moeller, the Dover kid, he was up at 75. I think we saw him last week at Hollis. So he was wrestling up. That looks like he trains with the Portsmouth crew. But he's definitely a tough kid, very physical, very aggressive. So, and Tyler, our guy Keene from Keene, he's been working really, really hard. It's his senior year, and really progressed, improved over the course of his career. So it's exciting to see him get a seed and be in the mix to see if he can upset some guys and make it into that top 6.
That's it. Just you got to make it to the dance, right? And then once you get there, you just got to find a date. So you already got a date. Now you just got to see how it goes. All right. So let's hop to 175. And this is one of those ones where I start to think about the MOC a little bit because there's a couple of matchups that I'd like to see in this one. And so, number 1, David Pinto Jr., right? Senior out of Londonderry. If you're looking for, one of the nicest kids awards, he's right there in the running with a lot of these other kids that we've talked about. Just a great kid, good role model for the underclassmen, and an absolute sledgehammer. And so he's your 1 seed. You got Sawyer, the Animal Goodwin out of Spalding, a.k.a. Rochester, New Hampshire. He's your 2 seed. Bedford's Camden Santos is your 3 seed. You got Sean Broderick out of Pinkerton at 4. I'm going to say it. Maybe I'm glad you're here, Coach Gillard, because maybe you'll correct me on another one. So Ilyas Azizuddin.
Nice, you nailed it.
All right. Well, I'm like 1 for a million this year, so that's good. And then a tough, scrappy Anthony Gilatari's your 6-1 out of Concord, and then Ryan Mikulski at Exeter is 7. And so when we talk about levels to the game here, it's going to be tough to beat Pinto Jr. And I say that knowing, or if you don't know, I'm a big fan of Sawyer Goodwin. I used to coach him when he was a little kid at the Y, and what a pain he was then, right? Just growing up. Imagine him with like no control. He's turned into quite a nice young man, very respectful, a lot of sportsmanship. And quite honestly, most of the kids he wrestles, he could just gorilla grip them and ruin them. And he beats them with respect, I guess is what you could say. And when he gets against a kid that is his level, not that the respect goes out of the way, but those ram horns come out and he's ready to lock with you. And so I think for my money, it's a race for Junior and Sawyer just to get to the finals. And then, again, betting man, I got to take Pinto, but I would not be shocked if a Goodwin upset happened, right? Like, it's possible because he's that kind of strong and he's that kind of crazy to believe he can do it. And so 1 and 2 there look really good. Santos from Bedford, coach, I'm going to give you a moment to talk to him. But again, another kid I worked with briefly on the youth level, and he's come a long way over the last couple of years. He's one of those kids, he looks tired after 30 seconds, but he's going to keep going into the ultimate tiebreaker at the same pace. It just, aesthetically, he looks tired, but he just keeps going. And so, Coach Schieding, that's my introduction to the top 3. You can fill in the rest for me.
Yeah, I think Pento's been so dominant these last 4 years here. It's just this year doesn't seem too much different. The only difference is it just seems like he got a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and a little bit faster, which isn't good for everyone else. Goodwin's tough, big physical kid. Then our guy Santos, took last year off, came back this year, has wrestled great. We're pumped at it. We finally got him back out for the team. He's been having an awesome year. Couldn't be happier with the progress he's made, and kid just likes to win. And then heading down the Broderick and Ilias, I think that's a great quarters finals match. I think my memory serves me correct. I'm pretty sure they had a overtime match earlier this year, so that's a great quarters right there. I think it was a 9-8 match and double or triple overtime or something. Broderick snuck out, so great match there. And then Gouliardi, a tough senior out of Salem, falling in that 6th place spot. So I think there's a couple really good, interesting quarterfinal matchups here.
I think that's a fair statement, Coach Gillard. What do you got for the 175 pounds?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, we Ilias lost at Bedford. He got caught and got pinned. But I think so. He's excited to get back out. I mean, the Bedford, we had a great duel against Ryan's team, and it was tough. Both sides going back and forth. So. It was an overtime match against the Pinkerton kid, and then he split with the Concord kid, Gutierrez. So lost in the duel, and then came back and beat him at Cap City. So really, like that 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a lot that could happen in that neighborhood of the bracket in terms of different guys coming out on top. So should be super exciting to watch.
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, I'm all too familiar with that Keene Pinkerton matchup. It ended in sudden victory, and if I was actually a little worried, Coach Gillard, that you might be mad at me for that one. It was ended on a stall call, if I remember correctly.
It could be. That's all right. We're moving on.
We're moving on. Exactly. It got messy, but we're all friends now, so that's good. All right, so let's jump. Let's head to 190. We got 3 more to go. This Kyle Lindblad from Timberlane, he's your 1 seed. He seems real tough and angry at people, and he lets it out on the mat. I like that. You got the Thing, as I call him when I do my recaps. Number 2, Sam Cowett out of Bedford. He's just gotten absolutely rock solid over the last couple of years. Carl Siriana, Concord, is your 3 seed. We got Xander Wood out of Salem's 4 seed. Noah St. Ange, Exeter's 5 seed. Benjamin Hawkinsmith, must be good, got a great name, is your 6 seed out of Keene. And then this Lindblad, so he's at the top, been winning a bunch. I don't know a bunch about him, but Coach Schieding, you got the 2 seed. He's Sam Cowett, another one of those kids. He's just been grinding year after year, just keeps getting incrementally better each season. And, he's put himself in the position here to really do some good damage in the postseason. So let's big up Mr. Cowett here.
Yeah, he's had a great year for us. And he's ran into Lindball twice. We lost a 6-5 match in the duel. Gave up a reversal in the last 4 or 5 seconds to lose 6-5, and then I think lost by a takedown in the third period against him in the Timberlane tournament. So he's been in some tight matches with him. Um, been wrestling great this year. Other than that, you know what I mean. He's right there, working on trying to fix a couple small little issues. Uh, get working on our cardio and just making sure we don't make the same mistakes twice.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And again, Lindblad, excuse me. He, looking at, I see Bedford 6-5 loss and then 8-4 loss against him. So, winnable matches, right? And if you look at the rest of the record for Lindblad, like he's doing some damage throughout the rest of the state.
He's
And
been
wrecking
wrestling
people.
great this year.
Yeah.
Big,
And
long, tall, really long, really strong, really tough on his feet.
so that sets up some good stuff, right? Sirianna, Concord, tough kid. I think appropriately down there at 3. Coach, you got Benjamin Hawkinsmith down there on the 6th seed. I'm sure he'd like to improve that by a few places, but he's got some work out in front of him.
Yeah, I mean just to echo that, Lindblad is looked good. We were wrestling in the duel, and Ben had a nice shot. He was in on a nice single on Lindblad, and next thing you know, he's flipping upside down and funked him. And it's like not usual that you see a 190-pounder, throw some funk in the middle of the first period. So he's one athletic dude, but. Ben's only a sophomore, but I always joke with him about this, but it doesn't look it. But man, he is one tough kid. He had a good match against Cowett at Bedford. Just in terms of I think it was a major decision or close to a tech fall, but just a tough match for a younger sophomore. So he's definitely out there grinding, and he was up at 215, down at the beginning of the season, and came down to 190 and has been doing really well. So it'll be exciting to see if he can claim back. We didn't see Wood in the duel, but he lost to St. Ange in the duel against Exeter. So he'll be looking to get back some of those wins.
That's excellent. Yeah, Lindblad is he's a heck of an athlete. Like you said, 190. When you see the funk at 190, that's crazy.
Yeah. I'll say this about Wood is he looks every bit of 190. That kid is humongous.
Jacked up?
Huge.
Nice.
Big kid, super strong, super physical.
Well, stand by in 190. There could be some big sets of flair flying out there. All right, so let's hop to our 215. So speaking of big, strong, tough kids, your number 1 seed out of Pinkerton Academy, Anthony Caruso. Number 2 seed, again, a kid you probably look at and go, and then he gets a hold of you. He's Bedford's Gavin McConnell. He's your 2 seed. Isaiah Puckett, Concord 3. Evan Kucher out of Spalding. Caleb Sturdivant out of Exeter, Jimmy Nelson at 6 from Salem, and then Angel Lopez Meza is out of Manchester Central. It's good to see Central getting on the board there with a seeding. And so Anthony, so he's a football player. He's going to UNH next year. He's going to play some ball out there, just I guess wrecking people on the wrestling mats for fun to stay in shape. Got a chance to speak with him at the dual meet between the Astros and the Blackbirds, and just a really nice kid. I'd never really gotten to chat with him. Got a good head screwed on his shoulders, and I like that because he's got a lot of young kids underneath him that he's been mentoring along the way. So he's not getting the 1 seed because he's a nice guy. Because when he gets on the mat, he's not so nice. And we got McConnell on the other side of that. So Coach Schieding, this kid McConnell is turning on all right.
Yeah, he's having a good year. His only losses have been against the top guys around. both in-state and out-of-state. Had a really tight match to finish up the season with Caruso, 1 point match and triple overtime. So he's right there with them. I'll say Puckett, another really tough kid. You can't sleep on him. McConnell had a overtime match with him earlier this year. I don't know. I think there was a ref there, but we weren't too big of a fan of the ref, whoever was doing that match. He talks a little
Don't
too
know who that
much.
was.
He runs his little talk show, but yeah. Yeah, he was really tight match. Took him all the way to overtime, ended up scoring a takedown overtime. Great match. Kucher's really tough, another really big, strong kid. I think Kucher had a pretty close match at one point with Caruso this year. So, those top 4 seeds running into each other potentially in the quarterfinals could be some really good, exciting quarterfinal matchups at 215, which would be fun.
I agree. 215 is looking pretty stout there. Coach Gillard, anything to add there?
Yeah, well, I mean no, those are, I'm assuming, the Caruso brothers, the heavyweight and the 215. So they're battling, really, and improving the upper weights, at Pinkerton and Bedford. Ryan's whole team is really tough, all the way from 157 up. So, that's really shows how all those guys have improved, being in the room battling every day. So, it'll be really exciting to see who comes out on top between them. Puckett is very strong. So I'd agree. You can't sleep on him.
Yeah, 250 is going to be fun to watch at D1. All right. And last and certainly not least, because, man, 285 is absolutely the one to watch for me. Not only at D1, but at the MOC, because there's some big boys that are hanging out in D2 and D3 that are going to be, you're going to hear them coming. They're going to be shaking the foundation showing up at MOC. And boy, oh boy, look what they got to run into here. So, number 1, we got the battle horn will be in place. It'll be ready to be blown. We got number 1 seed, Evan Ray out of Keene. We just talked about the Caruso boys. Well, this is the other side, and he's the younger brother. He's actually a junior. James Caruso's your 2 seed. And if I remember correctly, I think this is his 2nd year of wrestling. And he's just a really good athlete. And boy, give him another year. What's that going to look like? Your 3 seed, Wayne Sakakini out of Concord. You got Jaden Kulan, who recently picked up his 100th victory in your 4 seed from Manchester Memorial. Luke St. Ange, another tough one out of Exeter. Them boys been at it. Wesley Chesser out of Spalding. Matt Ben, Bedford is your 7 seed. But to me, this one's all about the horn. How many times can the horn sound on a Saturday in the Division I round? Because it's coming to an end here, Coach. You're wrapping up your season here, and you got senior Evan Ray. I believe he's the captain of the team, and just a good young man who's been battling. And no matter where you are and what gym, when he wins, you know it because you hear the horn. So, D1 senior season.
Evans had a great season this year. I think he really, he won MOCs last year and didn't place at New England's. And so I think for him, really improving and trying to reach that New England level, has been a goal of his. And he had a really good tournament down at Lowell. And he's been really focusing on his technique, wrestling his game. But he also tried, I was just talking to him the other day, and he tries to stay really humble. Like he knows he's got to earn every win. He's got tough competitors. Julian, the Manchester, Memorial kid was down at Lowell, winning some matches. And so I think Evan's got a really good head on his shoulders and knows he's always got his work cut out for him. And he's got to stay sharp. And, because there are some other guys in the bracket that can throw, and you got to make sure that you don't make any mistakes. And so I think he's just dialed and ready to go.
Yeah, I think one that would like to make some waves coming from down below will be Matt Ben. You know, he's the 7th seed out of Bedford coach. Tough, strong kid, comes from good lineage. And, you know, Coach Gillard, you just mentioned it, right? Like Jaden, Kulan, and Evan, they're going to hit pretty quick, right? The 1 and the 4. Here we go. And this could be a really messy bracket, or it could play out how it's supposed to, whatever you think it's supposed to. But Coach Schieding, we see some good stuff here.
Yeah, I think if you look at the bracket, I think Evan Ray is if you look at just wrestling, I think he's the best wrestler as far as like technique wise and the skill set he brings. But I mean, these other guys are just they're some big boys. And if you make a mistake, that's all it takes in heavyweight wrestling. You know, you get a kid like Jaden, if he puts you on your back, probably about 275. If he puts you on your back, it's going to be hard to get off. I would think Ray's probably technically the most sound out of the group. I mean, if James Caruso's a second-year wrestler, I'm pretty sure his older brother Anthony is as well. So that just speaks to the level of athletes that both of those guys are as second-year wrestlers, both being a 1 and 2 at D1s, and Anthony being a returning D1 champ. You know what I mean? If you can get a D1 championship your first year of wrestling and come back and potentially repeat, and then you got the younger brother who's, if he's a second-year wrestler, the number 2 guy right now at D1s, it just speaks to their athleticism. Really, really strong kid. Gutierrez, solid wrestler out of Concord. Coolian, big, really big. Going to be hard to move around. And then Luke St. Ange, good athlete.
Yeah, I think, man, I think you nailed it. Evan Ray, I think by a country mile, is the most technical out of the group, but hands down.
100%.
You know, you watch the differences in wrestling. You know, I watched him wrestle Caruso, and you know he made it look easy almost. And that's no disrespect to Caruso. It's a homage, and I say that for Rick Ross. He loves that word. To the work that Evan Ray has put in, and you know how he's jumped up on those levels. And you know, again, puberty. He's still a big kid, but it's shifted on how it is on him, right? That baby fat that burns off of us as we go through puberty, that he's turned into muscle, you know, all that stuff. And I look at Jaden, you know, Jaden's on a mission, right? I think he knows that Evan Ray was the kid to chase this year. And I think he's been acting in that mentality. And I think he's ready for a shot, and, you know, the chips will fall where they are. But this is just for the D1 spot, right? But when we get to, like I said to MLC, this 285 is going to be a lot of fun here as well. But now I have to put you guys to the side for just a moment, because I want to talk very quickly about the team race. And I know that we got to keep that, you know, to the vest as coaches. And I don't want to put anybody uncomfortable. But man, oh man, is this going to be great? You know, it was just a couple of years ago. You know, there were some changes in the New Hampshire wrestling scene, and what has happened is parity. I see the opportunity here for an amazing team race. As I see it, you know, Salem, Timberlane, Concord, Keene, Bedford. Those top 5, I mean, it could shift in any way. Bonus points are going to matter. Everything is going to matter on Saturday at the Division I tournament. And again, I could care less who wins it. I hope the top 3, 4, 5 are separated by less than 5 points. I hope it is so close. I hope it's an amazing day. And again, I want to thank you two gentlemen for taking the time on a Thursday night, when again you got kids, wives. What are you doing? Why are you talking to that idiot? I get it. Trust me. I appreciate your time. It's personal therapy for me. I get it out. It takes care of my wife. She doesn't have to listen to me yak for this amount of time. And for this to be my third one and date in 3 days, I don't lose any excitement depending on what tournament it is. And so again, thank you guys for your time, your knowledge on the sport, not just on your kids, but on the kids that are around the state. And most importantly, the time that you put into the mostly young men, but yes, young women. But I focus on the young men in this statement, grooming our young men to be amazing husbands and fathers down the line. I could care less about their college wrestling. That's for them. It's down the road for me. And so keep up the great work, guys. And as always, we're going to see you on the mats.